The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Friday. It's Friday the 13th, and we're very happy to be with you here today. We've got a lot of different things that we're going to be talking about here on the show. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective and how we can be more effective no matter what role we play in this community. Whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner working with a child who's on the spectrum and trying really hard to create an environment in which they can make the most progress possible, or you yourself are a person who's on the autism spectrum and there are things that you want more information about, we want to be of service to you here because we know that this community is a big, beautiful rainbow of people who have different needs and at different times have different needs. So we want to be a resource for you. If there is information that you want, we would like to help you to connect with the people who can get you that information. How's that? And as we start out the show today, a couple of things in mind. We are doing our Holiday Giveaway Extravaganza. Every day, ever since mid-November, every hour that we are live, we've been giving something away. That continues now. A week from today, it's our last show of the year. So there's only this show and then 4 more live shows. And we're going to give away everything we have left in these last 5 shows. It's going to be amazing. Okay, so in this hour, what we have here, 2 fabulous, these are the hot game this year that everybody's going to want. We went to Toys R Us and Emily and I demoed this game. You'll see that in a little while. It's hilarious. I mean, just the fact that there's these glasses and you're making your nose grow, really fabulous. But I got to tell you that there's an element of this that's really great and educational for our kids who are on the autism spectrum, because we do want to work on lies and telling white lies and being able to look at other people and tell when they're lying. And that's exactly what this really fun game is about, is trying to get away with a white lie and trying to guess when somebody else is lying. The whole point of the game is to tell it. Do I have this sideways? No, I've got it right. Okay, so you see we have 2 different versions here. We have regular fibber and then we have the Disney fibber. So we're going to give both of these away in this hour. And in the next hour, we have a great game that we're going to be giving away too. But these are fabulous. And these games, these are by the people who made Headbands, which was the hot game last year. If you didn't get it last year, another great game for our kids on the autism spectrum, because it's that whole thing of that they're wearing a card on their head and they can't see what it is. And other people are giving them clues to it and they have to guess. Great for working on cognitive skills and for being able to do some perspective taking. So really remarkable. Wonderful games, and these 2 I have to remember and thank. Toys R Us donated these to us. So how do you win these toys? I will tell you how you win them, because I want you to win them and I want you to win everything else that we have available. So you watch the show. You can watch it live or you can watch it recorded. And we'll announce at some point during the hour what the toy is or what the gift is, and so you write that down. Then at some point during the hour, Emily will put on the screen, it appears on the lower part of the screen, a word or a phrase. And there's usually a fun picture that goes along with it. So you write down that phrase as well, and then you want to email us. Emily will show you the address right there on the screen. You want to email to us, and And you have to do it by 7 a.m. Pacific time the next day. So I know we don't have a live show tomorrow, but you have to get it to us by 7 a.m. tomorrow. And in the subject title, you say what you want to win. So for this hour, you could say the Disney Fibber or just Fibber. And in the body, you need to put the word or the phrase, okay? And once you put the word or the phrase, I'm trying to get my computer screen up here. Once you put the word or the phrase, then you email that off to us, and it has to be by 7 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. When you do that, of all the correct responses, we will go through and we will pick one at random for each one of the games. Then we will notify you via email, and we'll let you know you have to send us back as quickly as possible in this next week. Get us back your mailing address so that we can pop that in the mail to you and you can have it before Christmas. How's that? Isn't that a good idea? Okay. So make sure that you participate with that, and there will be a gift in the next hour. Also want to remind you there are lots of ways to watch the show, lots of ways to interact, because we do want you to be interactive with us. So Emily's going to show you some of the different ways in which you can interact with us, while I remind you that if you go to www.autism-live.com, that's sort of home base for us, but you can also visit us. I'm borrowing these lips this morning. You can visit us at YouTube and all these other places that Emily's going to show you. But if you're on autism-live.com, there's some added things there. You can click on the link to our blog, which is working once again. Our site was having a little bit of difficulty the other day. And you can also, that long, skinny white box, put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it is working today. And it pops up here on my screen so you can be asking our experts questions. That's what we love, is when we can interact with you in real time. We've got some really important things that we want to be discussing here today. So I always like to remind you, I am not an expert in autism. I'm a parent. My son was diagnosed almost 8 years ago exactly. He was 2.5. He's now 10.5. And I am a grateful, grateful person that I have been able to benefit from really the best of what there is out there for our kids in ABA. And I've had supportive parents and supportive individuals who are at the top of their game working with my child. I did not get that because I was smart. I did not get that because I had the money, because I didn't. I got that because I got good information. And I want to help you to get access to good information so that you can get the best of what's available for your child as well. I have a debt to pay forward, and I feel responsible for it. So take advantage. This show is free, and our resources on the show are free. I don't always have as much time as I wish I had, but let's do our level best. Write into us. We'll do whatever we can to help you. And it may be that we just say, we're here with you. You're not alone. And that's nothing to be sneezed at, right? But I'd like to get you more than that if we can, and hook you up with people who can get you further down the road that you want to be down. All right. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it in our world, the world that we're coming to that didn't always have autism at the top of our list of things to be concerned about, right? Not all of us went to college to get a degree in behavior. We just didn't. And now all of a sudden we have a responsibility to know these things so that we can be as productive as possible. So we're trying to make sense of these terms. So today's a big one, and we're going to be talking about it all day long. The phrase that we have today, it's a BIP. BIP. What on earth are we talking about? When people say, oh, you need to get that put in your BIP, or they call it the BIP. I think the parents call it BIPs more than the officials do. So what is this thing, and why do we need it? It's essential. So our actual definition here today, BIP, Behavior Intervention Plan. It's an action plan based on observations made in an FBA, oh, more jargon, that outlines how a team will improve difficult behavior that is inhibiting a child's success in school and other environments. It's really important and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but the behavior intervention plan can be used in any circumstance, but we very specifically want you to know that it's something essential at school, So this is a pretty good definition. If you don't know what an FBA is, though, it makes it hard. An FBA is that functional behavior assessment that figures out the function of the behavior. We'll talk more about that as well. But our working definition for this BIP, the behavior intervention plan, and by the way, if it's too much for you to remember the behavior intervention plan, you don't have to. That's why you're calling it a BIP, but you want one. It's a concise plan based on child-specific data for successfully managing challenging behavior. It protects the child from forms of discipline that are not effective, punitive, and random. And this jargon was decided weeks ago, months ago, really. It was decided this summer that this would be the jargon of the day, and yet it's something we're going to be talking about today, especially with the news story that broke this morning that the teacher who soaked the crayons in hot sauce because the child was eating the art supplies, and she thought, I know, this'll be effective. I'm going to soak the crayons in hot sauce because that should stop him from eating the crayons, right? This is what a BIP plan prevents. If you have in writing what the intervention is for the challenging behavior, and if the child is eating the art supplies, that's a challenging behavior. I don't think anybody would argue with the teacher about that's not something you really want to have happening in the classroom. It's not good for the art supplies. It certainly isn't good for the child. Right? This is a challenging behavior. By the way, there are millions of different challenging behaviors, but a BIP prevents some teacher from having some little brainstorm in the middle of the night and going, I know how I'm going to get around this. I'll just soak crayons in hot sauce. Or the teacher who decided, well, the child is making too many noises in the classroom. I know how I'll deal with this. I'll zip him into a gym bag. True story. True story. Or the substitute who, when the child was was touching other children's ears, decided, well, I'll pinch his ears, and that'll get him to stop it, right? A BIP stops all that and puts in place a plan that is effective at circumventing this behavior through using a series of different steps that make sense, that have been proven by science. So important. If your child has an IEP and if your child is engaging in any challenging behavior, I mean, seriously, stop what you're doing right now and go get your child's IEP out. I hope you have it in a place where you can access it fairly quickly. And if you don't, that needs to be a plan to do this weekend, is to have your child's IEP in a place where you know where it is at all times, right? And on the first page, there is a place that says BIP attached. And if your child is having any challenging behavior, that little box should be checked and the BIP should be attached to that IEP. Check it. Know what it is, know what the BIP is, and see if it's for the challenging. If you've gotten a note home from school saying, oh, well, Rebecca is doing this, do you want to ask them to do that FBA, the functional behavior assessment, and come up with a behavior intervention plan? You can't let it wait, because some of these teachers have these random ideas about, I know how we're going to fix this. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really good teachers out there, but this is about training, about a very specific thing. You could have a great teacher, but if your child needed an appendectomy, you wouldn't be like, go for it, right? You wouldn't. We can't let our teachers be just randomly deciding how to intervene with the behavior when it comes to autism. We can't. And the BIP takes care of that. This, I'm sorry to say, in the current state of things, this could be life-saving for your child. So BIP, super duper important. And we're going to talk more about the crayon soaked with hot sauce in a little while. I'm going to get hepped up. Get ready. Okay. Moving on. So that's BIP. That's why you have to know that. Okay, we always have a question of the day, and I love this because it's going to put us in a good frame of mind here. But how do you like to celebrate when you have a victory? And this can be a victory, a personal victory. This can be a victory with your child. What is your modus operandi of celebrating? Because you know why I'm asking this today? Sometimes we forget to. And we need to. We've talked all day yesterday about how important it is to have positive reinforcement for our kids when they're engaging in behavior that we love and want to see more of. Same thing for us. When do you stop and celebrate, and how do you celebrate? Name it. And you know what? There's probably people out there who are at a loss and don't know there was a period of time when I had forgotten how to celebrate victories. So let's prime the pump. Let's give them some suggestions about how you celebrate victories so that maybe they can be mindful of how they celebrate victories too. And I want to check in a little bit later on Facebook to see what you guys have written. Share. It's a good thing to do. All right, we always have a topic of the week. Our topic this entire week, which is why we're talking about the BIP today, is about consequence modifications and strategies. We talked last week about antecedent modifications, the things that we're going to change before the behavior occurs. Now we're talking about how we change things after a behavior to shape behavior into being what we want it to be, both good and bad. You know, we talked yesterday with Evelyn Gould about how important it is when we're seeing behavior that we want to see, that we're giving positive reinforcement for that behavior, and that sometimes that is a preventative measure from having behaviors that we don't want to see happen, right? Why didn't the teacher who soaked the crayons in hot sauce, did she even once reinforce this child for not eating crayons? Just a question. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about, how we react when we're seeing a negative behavior. So if the child's eating the crayons and we haven't gotten there before and haven't done all the antecedent stuff, how we react and what consequences we put in place there. And I'm just going to give you a hint. We're not going to talk about putting hot sauce on crayons as something that's effective. And our experts are going to tell you why. So, moving on to some of the different things that we're going to have during this hour. We have two experts that are unbelievably awesome. I'm so thrilled today to share with you. So, in the first hour here, we have Real Progress with Dr. Adel. Dr. Adel Najdowski is here with us, and we're going to be talking about how you craft the consequence portion of a BIP, and how when you go to school and they say, well, here's the BIP, how you get a say in it, and how you can check to make sure that what they've written down for you is effective. I had to do this recently, and it was a great thing. I'm hoping that we're going to have time today, because it's Friday. We like to have time for Funding Friday, but we've got two breaking news stories that we have to get to today, so hopefully we'll have time for everything. And then in the second hour, Science Beat with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. Dr. Tarbox will be here, and he's going to talk about some of the science behind consequence strategies and why they work. And we'll talk a little bit about punishment and aversives, and of course, because we're going to talk about eating art supplies, we're going to talk a little bit about PICA for kids who eat things that they shouldn't eat. That's a challenging behavior, and how we can use antecedent and consequence modifications that actually work and don't put the child at risk and don't end up having to be a court case because you had a random idea of soaking crayons. Can you tell? I'm a little upset about it. Anyway. So all of this and ever so much more, and our Holiday Giveaway Extravaganza, and your questions as we continue on after these messages. Stick with us. Hi, we're at the Toys R Us in Porter Ranch, California. And Emily and I are going to take a little tour around the store and find some great toys for some great kids.
All right, let's go.
Come with us.
Yes.
Okay, bring your dinosaur and come on, let's go look at things in the game aisle.
Okay.
I know you love games.
I do look.
All right. So here we are in the game aisle, Emily, and I want to show you that there's all these games that you can get for kids of all ages. They're interactive and really remarkable. One of the hot toys this year and many other years is the Bop It toy.
Okay, so what about the Bop It is so reinforcing?
Well, you know what? It can be interactive. It can be a social game. It makes lots of noises. Sometimes they light up depending on the version. It helps to work on fine motor skills, and it helps to work on fluency. This toy will grow with the child, and in fact you can get it in different versions. This is a little bit more complex version, and up top here we have one that's especially for older kids. It's called the Smash the Light. I would wait until a child is older to play with this one. So should we check out the Lego aisle?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Go. So how can we use Legos to help our kids?
Well, they're really spectacular toys for our kids because they work on executive functions and planning. They're really colorful. You can work on colors and grouping and matching, counting, because they have the little dots on the top. And if you have a younger child, you can start with the Duplo toys that are compatible with Lego and they don't have the choking hazard.
So then as the kids get older, what's great about Legos, it looks like, is that there's all sorts of themes. We've got movies here and video games, so the kids can really connect with what's personal to them. So Legos are amazing, but what else do we have to see?
Let's look at some educational toys in the leapfrog aisle, shall we? Okay.
Okay, so what do you have here?
Well, we're in the leapfrog aisle. This particular toy, very popular this year, is a leap reader. It comes with a little pen, and it tells us that we're going to read, write, and listen, all skills that we want to work on with a child. This pen that's in this box, you can put it over different pages in the book. It will read aloud to the child. They can trace their letters. It reinforces them for doing a great job. It's a really spectacular toy for our younger kids that are working on reading, writing, and listening.
This looks like a lot of fun and a really great way to help our kids learn to read and write.
Absolutely.
What else are we going to play with today?
I think we should take a trip down the functional pretend play aisle. This is where you're going to find all the things that are like real, but the toy version. So I've got this lovely set here that's all fresh vegetables, so I'm teaching nutrition at the same time. They're all appropriately colored, but I've got a knife so I can be cutting them too. This is really great play for a young child.
Shannon, I heard you got some toys that I get to play with now.
Yes, I'm going to take you to the demo table. We're going to let Emily play with some toys, and we're going to be giving some of these toys away on the show. But they're not just any toys. These are toys that are featured in this year's Toys R Us toy guide for differently abled children. And this is put together with the help of our friends at Lecotech.
So what do all these different icons mean?
These are different icons that tell us what skill this toy might help to develop in our children.
So can I play with the toys now?
Yes, it's time to play with the toys, Emily.
So I think I recognize this guy.
Yes, this is the ever popular and very sweet Elmo. But this is a very specific Elmo that teaches adaptive skills like zippering.
Almost yellow triangle zipper.
And so we get the reinforcement of Elmo talking to us when we do these things. There's a let's keep playing. So it encourages the child to continue to interact. And he's very reinforcing. When he giggles, I just want to hug him and play with him some more. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some Melissa and Doug toys. These are incredible toys. They'll last several different generations because they're made out of good quality wood.
Awesome.
And let's start with a lace and trace toy. Now, I happen to know that you love turtles,
I do
Emily.
love turtles.
And this is a set of farm animals lace and trace. And the child can pick out a color that they like for a lace.
All right.
And there are lots of different things that they can do with this. And I know it might seem like this is an old-fashioned toy, but you know, sometimes the old-fashioned toys are the best toys. Because what you're doing right now, Emily, is that you're using a lot of hand-eye coordination and you're using the pincer grasp. This is a precursor to writing right here. If you've got a child who's having difficulty holding a pencil, this is a really reinforcing way to work on this. And it comes in lots of different things. And then also for Melissa and Doug, we have this amazing switch and spin. Love this so much. This is a great cause and effect toy. As we start to put the gears together, we notice that when you turn one, another one can turn. You can rearrange this and do it in lots of different ways. There are 10 design boards, so you don't have to just do fish. There are other things that you can put there instead.
That's awesome.
Kids love this toy, and it's another Melissa and Doug toy.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at some fun games.
So I found this game, and it's called Fibber. So Shannon, I'm going to need you to put on your fibbing glasses.
I want a fib.
All right. So this game is totally reinforcing, and it helps our kids to work on lying.
Yes, and that's something we really, I know it sounds strange, but we want to work on that because being able to tell a lie is something that helps with safety issues. And also being able to tell if somebody else is lying is a really useful life skill.
What you need to do is get rid of your cards without trying to grow your nose, kind of like Pinocchio.
Okay.
But if you get caught...
And so eventually you can have a whole string of noses attached to the end of your nose. Very colorful. Again, we can be working on the colors. Kind of hilarious. A kid's going to want to play this with mom or dad and see that mom is Pinocchio telling lots of lies. I like this game a lot.
This is a great game.
We've had a really great time at Toys R Us, and all of the toys that you see here on the table we're going to be giving away on the show. So stay tuned to find out how you can win one of these great toys. You just saw the fibber there, and that's exactly what we're giving away in this hour. Those are those crazy glasses that Emily and I had with the big long noses, the multicolored noses. So that is the toy that's being given away today. Very fun toy. In any case, we have a wonderful guest who's here with us right now in the studio. We have Dr. Adel Najdowski. She is one of the co-creators of Skills, a program that I talk about a lot on the show here because I'm a big fan of it. But you are also somebody who is a wealth of information, and I love being able to have you here to pick your brain about how we can be more effective with an individual who's on the autism spectrum. And last week we had you talking about antecedent modifications, changing something that happens before the behavior,
Yes.
and how we can write that into a behavioral intervention plan, a BIP, which we talked about a little bit this morning. So this week we promised that we would talk about, on the other end, the consequence modifications and strategies to try to change behaviors as well.
Okay.
So there is a behavior, I know I'm talking and leaving you no room to say anything, but you part of the skills program, tell us what the BIP Builder is and does.
Okay. The BIP Builder is a tool that people can use, and they go in and they already have done their functional behavior assessment for the challenging behaviors, so they know the reason behind why the child is engaging in it. And now they're at the point where they're going to write their behavior intervention plan. And so what this tool does is it asks you to input the behavior itself, the actual function that you've identified from your functional behavior assessment, and then from there it starts asking you questions about whether you'd like to include certain components in the BIP. And the components that it provides to you are evidence-based ones known to work for that particular function. And it goes through the antecedent modifications, which, like you said, we talked about last week.
Yes.
And then it takes you through the next step, which is coming up with a replacement behavior. So what are we going to teach the child to do instead of the challenging behavior? And then last, it asks questions that will come up with what are the consequences going to be, both for, and this is key, and something that people shouldn't forget, is not only do you want to make sure you have consequences for the challenging behavior, like how are we going to address that, but you need consequences for the replacement behavior.
Yes.
Sometimes people forget that part.
Absolutely. And we had the opportunity to talk a little bit with Evelyn Gould about, doing positive reinforcement for the absence or the replacement behavior, the absence of the challenging behavior or the replacement behavior yesterday. And so I just want to, take people through. We are going to talk more in the next hour about this case this morning, but it's a great example. There's a teacher who somehow is being reinstated this morning, had previously lost her job for very good reason because she had a child in her classroom who has exhibited PICA behaviors and was eating art supplies. And this teacher took it upon herself in all of her worldly wisdom and her, like she decided around her breakfast table that what was going to work, the consequence, or I don't even know what she was thinking of, but what was going to work was that she was going to, and there had to have been some thought in this, right? Because she took a bunch of crayons and soaked them in a cup, and she fully admits this, in a cup of hot sauce. And then once they had soaked for a period of time, then she took them and put them in a plastic bag, wrote the child's name on it, and put it on the child's desk and let it be on his desk for a while. This was how she was going to curtail this behavior. So if we were going to do this in a different way, let's say we were going to do this the right way. Then what would have happened was there would have been a meeting where with the parents and the teacher or the school staff, whatever, saying, here's the challenging behavior. This child is eating art supplies.
Yeah.
This is not going to work. This is not a good behavior. This is definitely a challenge to everybody involved. So then they would have requested an FBA, that functional behavior assessment.
Yeah.
And what would have happened then for the FBA?
Then after that was conducted, they would have had a better idea as to what they should do for the treatment, and they would have written something into the BIP.
Because they would have figured out what it is, because it's possible that the child was doing it to gain attention, right? It's possible that the child was eating art supplies to get out of something, or it's possible that the child was eating the crayons because it was something that fulfilled some need in them.
Some thing that was automatically being reinforced, yes.
And depending on which one of those things it is, the intervention is going to be different, right?
Correct,
It's
yes.
not one size fits all. Oh, you're eating crayons, therefore the intervention is blah-de-blah.
Right.
Right? It isn't that. You have to know why the child is eating the crayons.
Yes.
But if they had found that it was a PICA-like behavior, that it was just, there was something about, and there are people who have this,
Yes.
where they eat things.
Yes.
And it's a compulsion. It's not a choice. And it's very serious. And if they had found, there is still an intervention for that. And so then they could have gone to the BIP Builder and skills and gone through and put in child is eating art supplies. Function of the behavior is that it's automatically reinforcing, and then there would have been drop-down menus making suggestions.
Exactly.
And no place would have said soak the art supplies in something that's caustic.
No,
It's
not
just
at
not
all.
on there.
There are not those kind of punishment procedures.
And why aren't the punishment procedures on there?
Well, I mean, there is technically a punishment procedure in there, which is response blocking.
Okay.
And what blocking is you're just not allowing the behavior to occur.
Right.
And you usually use it when the behavior is severe enough to where it's going to harm the child or somebody else.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone's banging their head, a way of doing response blocking would be to have one of those cushions or something like that where we go in and block them
Right.
from actually making contact of their head with the wall or something like that. And let's say with PICA, for example, a response blocking might literally be when they're going toward the item and it's coming toward their mouth or something, we just put our hand there and block it from getting in.
Right.
That's it. And redirect. It's not like anything more than that. It's very
Right.
gently done and everything
Absolutely.
else. So, but it's still considered a punishment procedure because it's a consequence that decreases a behavior.
Right.
And when
So-
you deliver a consequence contingent on a behavior and it decreases it, that's considered punishment.
Okay. Very important distinction for BCBAs to know, but I want for our parents to know
Yes.
that the things that we think of as punishment and putting hot sauce on somebody's tongue, which would seem like a punishment thing to me, those kinds of things aren't in there because they haven't been shown to be effective.
Right. And there's a lot of really not great side effects with punishment. Punishment for it to work has to be pretty severe and it has to be infrequent. Like if you do it all the time, people actually build up a tolerance for it and things like that. It also creates counter control. So then, when you use a lot of punishment or negative consequences, then you're just creating somebody who now is more angry with you, resents you, and is going to kind of do other things to get back at you, which we
Yeah.
consider counter control. So it's just always been a better approach to use reinforcement. Figure out this child's engaging in PICA, what could they be doing instead, and then reinforce that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and we're going to talk in the next hour about some of the studies that, about the kinds of things that are effective with Dr. Tarbox. But the point being that the thing that the BIP Builder does is it helps you to not make a bad choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really the beginning and the end of it, is it helps all the people involved to not make a bad choice. You're only given choices that have been shown to be effective. And you're given multiple choices so you can choose what might actually work in this instance.
Exactly. And you're given choices in a way, the way they're presented is a way that tries to lead you to choose least intrusive first. So it doesn't take you straight to the response blocking punishment
Right.
procedure, for example. It'll offer other things first. But it asks questions to help lead you if it thinks that you're going to need response blocking, is the behavior dangerous? If you said yes to that,
Yeah.
then it's going to lead you then to something more intrusive like that.
And what's important for me to know is that, bless these poor parents that had this child in this classroom with what they've been through. And now especially that a judge has ruled today that this teacher can go back to work. Mind-blowing. But you know what? The parents, I would bet you dollars to donuts, did not know that they could have had access to something like this.
Right.
And this is where I get emotional, because if you don't know, you don't know. And I want all of the parents watching today to know how important it is to have a BIP attached to your child's IEP to protect you and to protect your child, and really to protect everyone. Because I'm just going to guess that if there was a BIP that was attached to that child's IEP, then the school wouldn't have had to have already spent $50,000 to try to get this woman fired and not be successful in it, right? So this protects everyone, because now she's going to have access to other kids. I hope she's learned a lesson.
Right. Had there been a BIP, it would not have said to dip it in hot sauce, I can guarantee you.
Right.
And if she went ahead and did that, then she's not in compliance with the BIP.
Exactly.
So.
And that's a reason to get rid of somebody. That's an actionable legal thing. So, I'm always fond of saying sometimes in life we're the lesson, and boy, it hurts when we're the lesson. But when we're not the lesson, we have a responsibility to learn. So if something good could come out of this, if everybody who's watching could understand that you do have access to tools that can help you to prevent this from happening with your child, and be empowered by that, and empower the people in your school to get the proper information, and you can do all of that on Skills. Right. It has the BIP Builder right there. Nobody has to guess. And by the way, it is by no means just for this kind of a behavior. We talked about last week that the drop-down list of the behaviors that it covers is just so extensive.
Yeah, it's any challenging behavior that exists.
And whether it's in the classroom or at home or at grandma's house, the behavior could be happening anywhere. If you're having something happening at bedtime that just keeps on happening and you really want to change it, you can have somebody do the FBA for you so that you know what the function of the behavior is. That's a key component.
Right.
But if you have the function of the behavior, you can write the BIP.
Yeah.
You really can with this tool. Or if somebody is giving you a BIP, you can check it with the BIP Builder to see, is this shown to be effective?
Yeah, and there's so many things that could have been done instead of the hot sauce in that case. Like, just looking at the antecedent side kills me, because if it was particularly crayons that this student always went toward, all you needed to do was put the crayons in a place where the child has no access and only allow crayons under supervision.
Right, and then you would...
When someone's sitting right there with the child, able to make sure they're not putting them in their mouth.
And you would make sure, as you were saying before, that every time the child was with supervision using the crayon and not eating them, you would make sure that you gave lots of reinforcement for that proper behavior.
It would be as simple as this. If you could observe the child and get an idea of like how often they're going to put the crayon in their mouth, and you notice that he's doing it every 10 seconds, let's say it's that frequent, then you deliver reinforcement for every 5 seconds that he's not putting it in his mouth.
Yeah.
And that's really intensive, I understand. But you don't stay at 5 seconds forever. That's a temporary thing. And you slowly start to lean that schedule out so that it's not as often. And it works. I mean, if you have a highly preferred item that that child wants, they will do it.
And here's the other component of this that, a lot of times, I know I'm a former teacher, and you feel like sometimes if you rock the boat, then you become labeled the difficult teacher, right? But this is where parents come into play too, that if the teacher is sending home the note saying, your son is eating crayons, as a parent, you have the responsibility to push the issue and ask for the FBA, because that empowers the teacher to get the help for the intervention that they need. If the team comes back and says it's going to take somebody reinforcing every 5 seconds, and you as the parent asked for the FBA, the teacher doesn't have to have asked for it, and at the meeting they will put another person in there to do that if that's what the BIP requires, and the teacher didn't have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard as a parent. You think, well, the teacher should advocate it. They're just not going to all the time. Not all the time. Right. And you have the power to do that. Don't put that pressure on the teacher. Be the parent who says, I want the FBA. It's a favor to the teacher.
And if for some reason you get back the BIP, someone writes it, and you don't feel that it's right, you can also request an independent evaluation.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've told the story a little bit before, but we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and I'll talk about exactly what I did a year ago when I got back a BIP that I looked at it and I said, I don't know whether this is worth the ink that, was used to write this or not, and how I used the BIP Builder to change everything. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Adel Najdowski. We call this segment Real Progress with Dr. Adel because she helps us to put tools in our hands so that we can be empowered, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a practitioner, to be able to get to the good stuff. I mean, that's really what you do for us, and I thank you so much for that. And one of the tools that you've put into our hands is this BIP Builder, a Behavior Intervention Plan Builder. And I was saying before the break, and I know I've talked about this briefly before on the show, that it was a little over a year ago that at an IEP meeting, prior to the IEP meeting, I was given this new BIP that I had never seen before. We had had a BIP when Jem was in kindergarten, and then there was a new one that I was given, and I said, I looked at it, and even as a former teacher and somebody who does this show, I looked at it and went, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know whether this is good or not. And just the idea of how would I even begin to know whether this was good other than to show up at your door and say, Dr. Najdowski, can you help me and take 2 hours of your valuable time and go through and look at all this? I really, and how fortunate I am that I could consider that, right? And most of us don't have access to you like that. And so I said, you know.
You didn't do that though.
I didn't. I sat down and I logged into my skills account and I went into the BIP Builder and I started to build a BIP side by side. I plugged in the function that was on the BIP and then I plugged in, so I plugged in the behavior and I plugged in the function of the behavior, and then I started with antecedent modification and I looked at what they had and I saw that it was not listed on the BIP Builder, what they had put down. And as I started to look at it, I was like, well, now wait a second, that's not what I would have done. That's not helpful. That's not going to work. And I saw what was there on the BIP Builder, and then I went on to the replacement behavior. And by the time I was done, I had written what I thought was a much better choice. And I knew as a parent that what was on the BIP Builder was not effective, not shown to be effective scientifically. And more than that, I can't remember exactly. One of the things that was on there, I was like, that,
on the original one from the school, the BIP?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Something that was on the BIP was something that I was like, that is going to make this behavior happen more often. I was confident that it was. I can't remember what it is to tell you. But anyway, I was able to go back in to the meeting and say, don't like your BIP, and here's why. Because it should be this, this, and this. And everybody went, oh. What, like, did you just go get a master's degree in autism? What happened, right? And I said, I just used this lovely little tool, but this isn't going to work. And that piece of paper went away so quickly.
Yeah, you did a little rip.
That was like gone. And we got to move, and that was also the meeting that I went in and said, and I looked over the goals that you guys have, and most of the goals were great, but I said, we're missing a couple of things here that I think are important, and I was able to look on skills in terms of what was age appropriate and skill appropriate for Jem, and what he had missing to see what was missing, and I said, here are 3 goals that I want to add that I don't see addressed, that were about things during his recess and lunchtime, that were social and play goals. And as a result of that, they said, oh, you need stuff during that. Let's get a recreational aide to do an assessment. And now he has a recreational aide during only during those times. And it was honestly, I mean, I came back and said to you and to your team, it was so empowering as a parent.
Yeah, I remember. I keep thinking the word empowered.
That was the word. I just felt so empowered. I was like, oh my goodness, and can I also tell you that normally before an IEP, I'm like on the internet for an entire week and looking things up and doing things and, you know, trying to figure out what. And I had done less work in less time for that IEP than any other IEP, and I got more done. And I went in confident. I was slept. I had slept, and I knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew exactly what was going to be appropriate for Jem. And I didn't feel like I needed to go in and fight. I just was like, this isn't going to work. This will. And here are 3 goals I want you to add, which led to something actually amazing for my child. So, you know, I want people to realize how empowering this BIP Builder can be. And for teachers, if there are teachers watching and you have somebody in your classroom who's engaging in a challenging behavior, this is, you know, the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's nice to know, too, that there's been some research done on the BIP Builder, in case anyone's wondering about that.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Just showing that it makes behavior intervention plans more function-based. So if you do your functional behavior assessment and you know the function of the behavior, you should have a BIP based on that function, right?
Yes.
But that's not always the case. Sometimes people kind of drift, I think, or
yes,
maybe they're not, you know, well trained enough or whatever. But the bottom line is that our BIP Builder, we did a randomized control trial, and we had 2 groups, and one group used the BIP Builder to update an existing BIP, and another group just was told update your existing BIP on your own. Mm-hmm. And so it was like the point of updating it was to get a pre and a post.
Right.
And basically we showed that the group that used the BIP Builder produced more function-based BIPs.
And that's for people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, this was actually people in the field
Yeah.
who do supervision
So it can make them better.
for individuals with autism. Yeah.
Which means it's for sure going to make us better.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. Now, somebody just wrote in a question. They said, I want to ask for an FBA because of my son's ongoing vocal outbursts in his new school this year. He attends a public school. This is a new behavior this year, and I'm thinking it's gone on too long. Our IEP is next week. Can I put it into the IEP? So I certainly would recommend that you ask for the FBA today.
Okay.
And that you put that in writing and say, I am concerned because there is a new behavior. You're not going to have time to get an FBA done before an IEP next week. And what they may come back to you and say is, let's postpone the IEP and do the FBA. Or you may go into the IEP to talk about why the FBA needs to happen. But you're not going to come to a conclusion at the meeting next week one way or the other. Because you're going to want to have the results of that FBA and the BIP put into that new IEP.
Exactly.
So, am I barking up the right tree?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because how long do you think, especially in the week before, for most kids, they're not going to school the whole week next week, and to get the people in to do the FBA next week, it's probably not going to happen until after the winter break.
Probably not, but you'll just want to make sure that you get it in writing, like Shannon said, that the FBA is going to occur, and that you're moving in those steps forward of getting that done.
And like one of the things that I do before my IEPs is that I write a letter the night before that my husband and I both sign, and I thank whoever I want to thank for good service, right? It's important to give positive reinforcement to people who are doing it right.
Yes.
And then I detail by number each one of the things that I think has to happen. So, but I would go ahead and put in the request for the FBA today, but if I were doing this, and this is just my style, but I've found it to be very effective, because if you don't get to the end of the IEP, they say, well, get back to us with what you feel, right? And I don't want to wait, right? So before they even have a response for me, I want to have a response for them. So I say, point number one, an FBA has to be done on this behavior so that a behavior intervention plan can be achieved that we all agree upon, blah, 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 blah. Number two, and I go down the list. And so when it's my turn in the IEP, instead of me making a statement, I read the letter out loud into the whirring microphones that you've told them that you're bringing and that they'll bring one too, and do that in writing today too. So I read it out loud, and I have a copy for me, and I slide the little piece of paper across to them, so when we leave the meeting, the next bit of action is them, not me.
So you're audio recording your meeting is what you're saying?
Always. Always. You have to put that in writing as well, 24 to 48 hours before. Do it 48 hours before, because certain states it's 48, some it's 24. But if you do it when you get the IEP invitation, it's done.
Put it in writing that you're planning on recording the meeting.
Yes. Say, I will be attending, and I will be bringing a tape recorder, and yes. That does two things for you. It prevents a whole lot of things from happening at the meeting that you won't even believe could happen in a meeting. And the second thing that it does is it gives you a record of what happens. So when and if they make a mistake, if they make a mistake, it's going to go in your favor that you have it on the recording. And the other thing that it does is that it's a reminder to us that we have to be on our best business-like behavior, as emotional as it may feel like it's going to get.
For everyone.
For everyone. We have to be as well.
Every person at that table.
Nobody can get upset. There cannot be any yelling. You especially. If you're recording, they'll bring a recorder as well. You must be on your best behavior. There is no inappropriate language. There is no raising voice, because there is a permanent record of it. And if it goes to court, that will count against you. But always record. It's always going to be better for you if you record. And rather than have to count on knowing what you're going to say at the meeting, if you have it all written up in the letter and you slide it across, then you had a chance to edit it. So you say exactly what you want to say. Do you have that thing where I always do, where I think, oh, I wished I'd said this.
Yes.
Why didn't I think to say this? Or I forgot that part. Instead it's on the letter. You don't have to. It does itself. And then you can sleep the night before. And I always bring brownies and lemonade.
That's great.
I'm like Brie Vandekamp from Desperate Housewives.
You need to bring gifts.
I come in with the little cloth napkins, which I don't do in any other time, but I come in with the cloth napkins. I'm like Little Red Riding Hood. But, you know, and the first IEP, we did what we were told to do. What a lot of people tell you to do is bring a picture of the child. If there are people at the meeting who don't know your child, you bring a big old picture of your child and you set that up with your brownies. It's all about the mental, the inner game of tennis, right?
That's awesome.
Anyway, BIP Builder, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for creating and making that accessible for all of us.
Well, you're talking to me as if I did it by myself or something. It's a team of people that did it.
But you led the team, and that's amazing.
Thank you. And I would like to give credit as well to Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, who also was right up there with leading. So
very cool.
Yeah. And
we appreciate you.
Speaking of him, later he could probably give you guys some info on the research behind PICA if you want to get back into that story a little bit.
Yeah, we will. I know we've talked with Dr. Tarbox many times about PICA, and so yes, a good plan. I feel like I've exhausted both of us. Yes, my blood pressure gets a little high when I talk about these things. But this is all good stuff that we all want to know about. And so I would, for the parent who just wrote in about that, request the FBA today. And, you know, they may say, do we want to hold off on the IEP? That's up to you, whether you want to have the IEP meeting or not. But if they don't postpone it, make sure you go and have that on your list of things to do, one way or the other, to get the FBA and the BIP. We're in alphabet land, but if you have the FBA, the IEP, and the BIP, and they're all working, and as somebody else had written in, how important it is for the teacher to read the IEP and to read and understand the BIP.
I would also make a request that the person that does the FBA is a board-certified behavior analyst.
Good point.
Because if someone else does it who's not really qualified to do it, and I hate to say this, but it's common, you're going to get a BIP and you're just going to feel like you have to trust it. Because you might not know if it's any good.
But that's when you're going to go to the skills and check it like I did.
Yeah, you could do that. You could even say, hey, I want you guys to use the BIP Builder in skills.
Yeah.
And then it make you feel even more safe that they're going to come up with good interventions. So.
And you know, you can get a free 14-day trial of skills, which allows you to use that BIP Builder.
Yeah.
So you know, you can use that to check a BIP today. Everybody could do that, and that way we learn from the lesson, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and please write back to us and let us know what happens with the IEP. I love to get updates on what happens, but we're empowering ourselves with Dr. Najdowski's help and with her team's help. So we don't have you next week.
Okay.
No, I'm assuming I think you said you were
Yeah,
gone.
you're right. Actually, I'm not around.
So we want to wish you happy holidays.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again in the new year.
Thank you. Happy holidays to all of you as well.
Okay. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And in this particular week, we are looking at potty training and getting some really great advice about potty training. So, and then we'll be back after this. Stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
Help. No, I can't help you pee. Help. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, you know, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance. Last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry, hurry.
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack.
Big prayer for your pee-pee.
Big pee-pee. Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are having our Holiday Giveaway Extravaganza, and I have before me the gift that we're giving away in this hour. This is called Answer Buzzers, and this is put out by Learning Resources, and this gift was given to us by our friends at Lecotech. And if you're wondering what the heck is Lecotech, check them out, because they're a wonderful organization that deals with play therapy and toys, and they are the ones who give the recommendation about using toys in the guide for toys for differently abled children for Toys R Us. And this is one of the toys that they really recommended this year from Learning Resources, Answer Buzzers. It comes with these 4 wonderfully colored buzzers that make different sounds. Now, if you're wondering, what has this got to do with learning? It's everything we've been talking about this week about that positive reinforcement. That, you know, you have to, in some way, if a child gets an answer right or does something, you want to give that immediate sort of response that's reinforcing to the individual child. Put these in front of a group of children and see what happens. That if they answer the question right, or they do what you ask them to do, and they get to hit the thing and it makes the noise, you know, for a lot of our kids, very reinforcing, and it makes them want to get the next answer right. We, when my son was very little, we had one of those staples, that was easy buttons that we had, and there were months that we had that on the therapy table, and if he, initially it was that if he got one right, he got to hit the button, it would say, that was easy, and he would just laugh, he just loved it. And then eventually he had to get 2 answers right, and then he had to get 5 answers right, and he would get to be able to do that. Absolutely loved it. Well, these are 4 different ones, and they make 4 different sounds, and they're 4 different colors, so you can be working on colors, and you can be working on sounds, or it can just be the reinforcer. These are really cute. Now, they do make some that are in animal noises, too, which can be very fun, but this is a very fun thing. When we also, I'm thinking about when we used to have, he doesn't have spelling quizzes anymore in 5th grade, which I think, I think you should have spelling all the time as a former teacher. I don't know why we let go of it in like 3rd grade. But when we would do his spelling words every week, we would do it in the car. And I don't know why, just one day we were in the car and I said, spell this word, and he spelled it. And I did this na kind of thing that I did, and he loved it. And so he would try to get the words right so that Mom would do the little song thing, and then Dad would do it too, and then we would all do it together and do a little dance with it. And if we were someplace and quizzing him on his spelling words and we didn't do it, he'd say, "You didn't do the thing. You didn't do the thing. I want the thing." So these are a great, great gift for our kids, a great learning tool, a great reinforcer for a lot of our kids. Maybe not all of them, but nothing is going to be for all of our kids, right? So anyway, during this hour, at some point, Emily will show something on the screen, a word or a phrase, and what you'll need to do is to write to this address that she's going to put up there, and in the subject line, put answer buzzers, and in the body of the email, put the word or the phrase that is what she shows on the screen. So there's the email. You must send it to us by 7 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. Okay, so you don't have to watch the live show, but if you're watching the recorded show later on today, make sure that you note that. Answer buzzers by Learning Resources, and we got them from Lecotech. Thank you, Lecotech, and thank you, Learning Resources. Great, great toy. In a total different change of topic here, news report that came out this week that we just want to address and let everybody know that the New York City Board of Health has approved mandatory flu shots for children. They're about to start requiring that young children who go to preschool or daycare get flu shots. The Board of Health voted this previous Wednesday in favor of the mandatory vaccine for children under 6. Health officials say that the measure will save lives, and Dr. Jay Varma, Deputy Commissioner for Disease Control, says the measure could keep as many as 20,000 city kids from getting sick. The initiative takes effect in 30 days. The vaccine will be required for about 1,500,000 children. Here's the next part. Parents may opt out for medical and religious reasons. If you decide to opt out for medical or religious reasons, there is always a form. This is true in all states for all vaccines. Vaccinating or not vaccinating is your choice, even when it is mandatory. You will have to ask. In different states, it's a different color piece of paper. If you're saying that it's for medical reasons, you will have to have a doctor sign off on it. If it is for religious reasons, you do not. So, that is information that we give you. You must make the decision for yourself. There are always reasons to get a flu shot. There is research that you can do about whether you don't want to vaccinate your child with a flu shot. In the most recent information that we have been told, the flu shot does still, to our current knowledge today of what we are aware of, contain thimerosal. So if you are deciding not to do that for your personal reasons, then there is a form that you will have to fill out. But even though it is mandatory, you can still opt out for those reasons. Again, it is a personal choice. Please do your research and make your choice for yourself, okay? We are going to take a break, and we'll be back with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go.
Yeah.
So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we designed the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters. The storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life, an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive, and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the storm gallery. In one side of the gallery we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. We have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You know, you put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, you know, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, you know, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, you know, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, you know, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. You know, people really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art-making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center. Welcome back to Autism Live. A couple of quick notes here. Just wanted to say thanks to the Skirball for letting us come and do that piece at the Skirball. Amazing. If you're in the Los Angeles area, go and see their Noah's Ark exhibit. It's fabulous, and they were so sweet and kind, and it's a great place to take any children, but also a great place to take kids who are on the autism spectrum. It's a wonderful sensory field day. So many things in my head right now that I want to talk about. But first, let's welcome Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's here with us in the studio. He is the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and he is also the director of the Autism Research Group, a really amazing organization that tailors their research on real substantive things that can make a difference in our lives.
That's our mission.
Well, we love that as parents. And I was talking in one of the previous segments with Dr. Adel Najdowski, and I was waxing poetic about the BIP Builder and how amazing it is and how it empowered me as a parent and how it's available to parents, that, you know, you can use this to empower yourself. And I was thanking her for it, and she said, well, it wasn't just me. And during the break, she was saying, you were the person who led that team, and I wanted to make sure that I thank you. I didn't realize that you were involved in that BIP Builder.
Sure, yeah.
Well, thank you. that has made a tremendous difference in my life as a parent, and I love to share that with the other parents here. And we were talking with Dr. Adel with one parent who had written in and said that their child is engaging in outbursts at their new school this year. He attends a public school, and the parent is saying, do I need to ask for an FBA? The IEP is happening next week.
Okay.
We said, ask for the FBA. You may have to postpone the IEP, or it may be part of the discussion at the IEP, but
Right.
you won't be able to sign the IEP until the FBA is done and the BIP is done. If you're just joining us, the FBA is the Functional Behavior Assessment. The BIT is the Behavior Intervention Plan. So the parent wrote back and said, does the school pay for it? And do public schools have their own BCBA? Do you want to, or do you want to do that together? How?
Either way is okay with me.
Well, the first thing is, if you ask for the FBA, yeah, the school pays for it.
Right.
But maybe you can talk about the BCBA and whether schools are supposed to have it and if they do have it.
Sure, right. So I would say the vast majority of schools in the United States still do not have a qualified BCBA to conduct a functional behavioral assessment for your child's challenging behavior. Totally depends on the region. It depends on the resources that the school has. It depends on how many parents have demanded this in the past, right? In that particular district. Here in California, there's lots of schools that have BCBAs that can go ahead and conduct your child's FBA. I would say in most states of the country, there are very few, maybe even zero, that are actually available to do that within the district.
Well, and something you should know though is that you should still ask for it to be done by a BCBA, because sometimes they contract outside of maybe they don't have one, but they'll contract with somebody, and it helps if you've asked for it and asked for it in writing.
That's right. And like any other part of a free and appropriate education, if the school district is not capable of delivering that, they need to pay someone else to do it. It's just that's federal law. So.
And they pay for that. You don't pay for that. If it's a behavior that's happening at school, they're responsible. And your child has an IEP, they're responsible for paying for that. And they also wrote and said, thank you so much for the IEP advice. So thrilled always. It's a very stressful time for a parent, but I was saying that skills and the BIP Builder have made that a less stressful time for me.
Great.
And made me more effective as a person who's on that team.
Right. It's basically just more information that tells you about different options that might work. And so it gives you information to sort of pick what you think is right for you and your child and your family. And it's empowering.
Absolutely empowering. So we always like to have you here at this time of week to talk about research and how research affects the things that we do, the interventions that we do. All this week we've been talking about consequence strategies and modifications to change behavior and to uphold behavior that we want to see more of. With Evelyn Gould yesterday, we talked about positive reinforcement for when the behavior is what we want it to be, or there's
the most important consequence,
or the absence of the behavior that we don't want to see, making sure that we reinforce that. I wanted to talk a little bit more with you today about this story that broke this morning. The teacher, Lillian Gomez in Florida, who was fired because she had a child in her class who had PICA-like behaviors and was eating art supplies. This teacher took it upon herself and thought it would be a really good idea how she was going to change this behavior. She soaked crayons in hot sauce, I believe overnight is what I had heard, in a cup, then took them out and stuck them in a plastic bag. And she's not disputing this part, by the way. This is not what's under dispute. Wrote the child's name on them and put them on his desk for him to use these particular crayons, knowing that this child eats art supplies. And my understanding was that she was fired and that she appealed that decision, and a judge ruled, I don't know whether it was this morning or last night, the judge ruled that she be reinstated to her job because they could not prove that she force-fed the crayons to the child. And of course, there's great outrage in the community, especially from the parents of the child who believe that this woman should never be allowed anywhere near a child. She will not be going back to that same school site, but she does have to have a job, and so the job that they've given her is to support other teachers. I know. It's very hard for me to keep a straight face about the whole thing because I go, really? And the school district is infuriated too, and they've already spent $50,000 to try to get rid of this teacher who should not be in the classroom and should not be supporting other teachers. But let's break it down a little bit. And I know that we've had you on the show before talking about PICA and PICA-like behaviors, and we just talked with Dr. Najdowski about what should have happened was an FBA, and that they could have used the BIP Builder and come up with antecedent modifications to make it so that, you know, this child wouldn't have been eating the art supplies. But help us.
Okay,
help us.
I don't even know where to start with this.
Yeah, I know, nobody
does. It's so
does.
over the top. It's so crazy. I guess, first of all, the most important thing to point out is the teacher was not implementing anything similar to ABA or behavior modification or applied behavior analysis, or not, you know, in any way whatsoever. I think the appropriate description for that intervention is probably abuse. You don't trick a child into having hot sauce in their mouth. I mean, that's totally unacceptable. I guess it might kind of depend on how hot the hot sauce was, if it's Tabasco sauce versus a mild, you know, Taco Bell sauce or something, but it's nuts. I mean, even people, you know, even medical doctors under extremely carefully controlled and regulated situations can't just go around putting hot sauce in kids' mouths, even if they have a behavior problem. It's completely nuts. So it's not even, there's no gray area here. You cannot do that as a teacher, as a parent, as a medical doctor, as a BCBA. That is not an acceptable thing to do in order to help a child modify their challenging behavior.
And even the courts have upheld that in the past. There's a mom in Alaska who was using hot sauce as a punishment and putting it on her child's tongue, and she's having to serve probation for that. Was, I think, originally given jail time, but is on probation. You know, so I don't think the courts are usually in a place of ambiguity about this either. But what we've heard from the judge is, since we can't prove that she force-fed them.
But she's not. I mean, I don't know the details of the case, but are they saying that we're not sure that she really intended for the child to eat the hot sauce?
I don't know, because
she admitted to that, right?
She's admitting that she wrote his name on.
So are they saying it was the child's choice to eat the hot sauce?
Well, her lawyer is saying that it was a bad choice, but that she didn't force feed them. This is the line, that it's a bad choice. But it was. It was something that was supposed to stop him from eating the crayons.
Right. And he didn't know that the hot sauce was on the crayons, obviously. And and she wanted him to eat the crayons so that he would get the aversive consequence of hot sauce in the mouth, right?
Right.
I mean, to me, that's no different than just walking up to him and squirting it in his mouth. I mean,
well, here was the thing for me that I said this morning, is that I wish that the team from the school, because, you know, there are some people, it's not good ABA technique, and we should be very clear about that, but there are some people who use aversives and who think that that's appropriate. And even the people who do that, that is something that should be used in a very controlled manner, and that you have to be responsible for what it is you're doing. So you would never just put something that you were going to do aversive on somebody's desk and walk away.
No, it's not.
So if nothing else, even if the court doesn't understand why you wouldn't use aversives, if nothing else, she was grossly negligent. And for that, she should be fired.
And there are a very small percentage of cases where aversives might be ethically justified. You know, in each case, it's got to be discussed. But there are people who have died from PICA. There are people who have died from banging their head against cement walls too many times. And there might be some cases where the person is literally going to die if they do the behavior again, or they're going to lose their vision if they poke themselves in the eye one more time. And at that point, maybe you might say, well, maybe a little bit of hot sauce is worth it to prevent death, right? But this, and even then, there's a process. I mean, it's, you know, it's not just your choice. You got, you know, there's approval from human rights boards. Sometimes, depending on the state laws, sometimes even the attorney general for the state needs to approve it.
And then it would be a very controlled environment in which everything was monitored.
Right, absolutely. And even then, honestly, you'd feel kind of awful. Like, you don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that, right?
Right.
So, what this teacher did bears no relation whatsoever to the use of aversives in even a responsible manner or any manner whatsoever. It's just crazy.
It's appalling. It's appalling is what it is. And the judge's decision I find to be appalling. You know, we've talked about this with other cases lately. It's like somebody has to stand up and be a part of a solution and use some common sense. And I find it appalling that this woman can keep her job, because this was a decision she made on her own. And I know that sometimes, look, I'm an ex-teacher, and sometimes you feel desperate and you feel like the support isn't there. But, you know, why wasn't she asking for an FBA?
Right.
That was within her scope to ask for an FBA.
Of course. And I'm kind of wondering why eating crayons is such a life-threatening problem anyways. I mean, of course it's frustrating, it's difficult, it's going to cost some money, but, you know.
Yeah. For the time and energy that she took to soak the crayons, she could have come up with something that was really useful and effective, that would have helped her as a teacher and helped this child, instead of being so destructive. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, this idea that I think all of us at some point, and I shared this the other day, that, you know, as a parent, because of my upbringing and the way I've moved through the world, that something happens and you feel like, oh, well, I gotta punish this, and I gotta, you know, that's our first line of defense.
Right.
Always that's the way we're going to combat a problem. But in fact, what you had mentioned earlier and what we talked about with Yvonne Gould yesterday, it's more effective if we positively reinforce. And I want to talk about the science behind it. Maybe we should take a break and talk specifically about the science behind and the research behind why positive reinforcement is so much more effective.
Okay.
All right, so stick with us. Back with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox after these messages.
So the holidays are fast approaching, and you might be looking for a fun cookie recipe you can make with your kids. Well, thankfully, Breads from Anna has given us a great sugar cookie recipe that we can make that's gluten-free. So let's get started. Here's some of the things you'll need. For the dough, you'll need 1.5 cups of vegetable shortening, 2 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon almond extract, 4 eggs, 3 cups of Breads from Anna dairy-free flour, 2 cups potato starch, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And for the icing, you'll need 1/2 cup of shortening, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 4 cups confectioner's sugar, and 2 tablespoons of almond milk. To start with, we're going to just mix together our liquids. So we've got our shortening, eggs, our vanilla, and our almond. And we're just going to go ahead and cream these together. So once that's all creamed, we're going to go ahead and add our dry ingredients, starting with our Breads from Anna flour. And we've got our potato starch, and we've got our baking powder and salt. We're also going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of sugar. All right, once that's all blended together, we're going to go ahead and cover this and chill for about an hour or overnight in your fridge. So it's been an hour, our dough should be cool. So we're going to try to roll this out to about 1/2 inch to about 3/4 inch in thickness. So while I'm rolling out the dough, I preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And I have a baking stone preheating in the oven that I'm going to set these on. But if you don't have a baking stone, that's okay. You can just use a cookie sheet with parchment paper. Now you're going to take your cutter and just cut out all your cookies. All right, so I'm gathering my cookies, my little dudes here. That's good. Let's go ahead and put these in the oven. And these should be good to go in about 6 minutes. So while our cookies are baking, we can go ahead and start making the frosting that we're gonna use once they're done. So we're gonna need our shortening. We're gonna go ahead and add our butter. We're gonna add our vanilla. We're gonna start to blend this. Okay, so once we've creamed these together, we're going to go ahead and add our sugar just a bit at a time. And last but not least, we're going to add our almond milk just to soften it up a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. So once our cookies are done baking and we've given them time to cool, we can go ahead and frost them all. Okay, so our cookies are ready. Let's go get them. These look pretty good. Now's the part where you get to be creative with your kids. Feel free to ice these in different colors, with sprinkles, however you want. We've got our cool cookies here, our homemade icing.
All right, these look great. For more of these recipes and to possibly win some of your own breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live, and we'll see you there soon. Thanks for joining me.
Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and he is the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and the director of the Autism Research Group. And so thrilled to have him here because the question that we have for him today is, why is positive reinforcement so effective?
Right. Okay. So it's kind of the answer to that is like the whole science of applied behavior analysis. So
love it.
But we'll try to pare it down to 30 seconds.
Okay.
But I guess at the most fundamental level, the reason why positive reinforcement works best to decrease behavior problems is because you're making the person actually want to behave better.
Makes sense.
Like at the very fundamental core, why do people misbehave? It's because they're getting something that they want out of it. So if you're, Mr. Discipline or whatever, and you're going to punish the person, well, that might change their behavior, right? But at the most fundamental level, you haven't changed why they're misbehaving to begin with, and you haven't made them actually want to behave differently. You've just kind of forced them, coerced them through punishment. If you're actually giving them a genuine source of motivation to want to behave better, i.e. positive reinforcement, then the whole thing, just loosely speaking, the whole thing just becomes happier and more fun, and they own it. It becomes part of how they see the world, what they value, right? Rather than just something, okay, I guess I have to do it because my teacher is going to punish me or because mom gave me a timeout or whatever it is, right? So that's kind of the sort of loosely speaking reason why. But if you want to get a little bit more technical, what it does is it gives them a particular behavior, it gives the child a particular behavior that they can do to get what they want, while making it clear that the old behavior, the misbehavior that they used to do, is not going to get them what they want. So it's a real simple choice. We liken it to two different buttons. Press the good behavior button, get everything you want in the world, and feel proud of yourself. Press the bad behavior button, and you don't. Like the button's broken, basically. You don't get what you want.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens, right? Yeah. You don't need to go around punishing someone for pressing the bad behavior button. Right. In some cases, it is justified. I'm not saying never, but the vast majority of the time, and the first line of defense and the first maybe 20 lines of defense don't need to involve punishment because they're not addressing the real issue.
And so, as a strategy for the holidays, if there was one thing that parents could take away about a way to make the holidays and this difficult, stressful time that's supposed to be happy and joyous better, right, is to find more opportunities to reinforce behavior. So anytime you catch your child doing something good, right, heap on the praise, you're right, more likely to stay on that track, and right, your child will want to continue doing it.
Right. And holidays are not the best time for teaching your kids something new. Okay? They're not the best time for settling grudges between you and your child or you and your spouse. They're not the best time for worrying about how you feel about things or how other people feel about things. They're the best time to just do what works, right? Find something simple that's going to work and help your kid be happy in this situation by giving them what they want as much as possible when they're not misbehaving, obviously.
Right, obviously.
Not when they're manipulating or when they're misbehaving, but before that stuff comes up. Just give them what they want as much as possible, and say, you know what, in 2 weeks, that's where we're going to start our new program where he learns how to tolerate family situations more, and we'll gradually fade in how annoying the family situations are, and we'll work on that. And that is a skill we can work on. But man, Christmas morning or Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, that's just not a useful time to work on that.
Okay, so we're all going to focus on finding a time to positively reinforce the people in our lives for behavior we want to see more of.
Absolutely.
And then we'll report back in a couple of weeks and see where we all are.
Hey, absolutely. And focus on what's going to work, not what should work, right? So when you're saying, well, my kid really wants more video games, immediately you probably say to yourself, he shouldn't want video games so much, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're right, he shouldn't. Where's that going to get you? How's that working out for you, right? He wants more video games, and it is going to work to make him behave better if you give him more video games when he's being good and before he starts to be bad.
Okay, so make that the reward, and stop the argument in your head
about what he should want, or what I should be doing, or what's better or worse, or everything else. What works, right? And then set a goal for maybe decreasing overall amount of video game time in your kid's life. If that's a priority to you and you think that matters, great, but not on Christmas, not when you're dealing with in-laws and family members and everybody else, right?
Great advice. Great advice. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back more with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. And the live feature is working. If you have questions, now's a great time to write in. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For December, I thought we'd work on an activity that is a handmade gift for someone who is super special in your life. It could be for a teacher, family member, or a friend. So let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are cardstock, pencil, glue, and crayons. This activity is making a monogram letter filled with crayons. This activity is great because it works on one, the pincer grasp, and also planning ahead since you're going to be having to break the crayons to fit the inside of the letter. So to begin this activity, first things first, mom or dad or guardian is going to have to draw out the letter for the kid. If that's a little difficult for you, you can always just print something out from your computer and then glue it on the heavy cardstock, all right? I'm going to go ahead and draw mine freehand. So now that my letter M is drawn out, now it's time to fill it in with the crayons. So I'm going to take them and place them onto it accordingly and try to break them into pieces that'll fit the spaces perfectly.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
So now that you figured out the sizes of the crayons to fill in your letter, now take your glue and fill in the space and start laying them back in. Now we're going to let this dry for a little while. Once your monogram is done drying, feel free to decorate any way you feel. I'm going to write a little message, but you can do whatever you want.
Stars come out and swirl around so high.
So here's my finished monogram letter. Hopefully Ms. Mackenzie is going to love her gift, and I hope you enjoy doing this activity with me. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye.
When you see me flying by your side.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and I wanted specifically to talk with him about PICA because we've talked a little bit about this crayon soaked in hot sauce. And if there are parents and teachers who are watching and who are concerned about when kids eat things, and you brought up the fact that sometimes it can be life-threatening.
Absolutely.
And we've had you talk about PICA before, and I don't think we can talk about it enough because it's one of those things that seems odd and mysterious. And even this morning, talking about it with people who don't deal with autism, people were saying, I don't get it. Why was the kid eating crayons?
Right.
It can seem mysterious and weird. So tell us a little bit about PICA and what we need to know.
Well, sure. First of all, it is really life-threatening. You know, I mean, it depends. There's a continuum of severity, but there are individuals who engage in PICA that will kill them eventually if you don't fix the problem. I actually worked with a man who eventually died from PICA. It was a couple years after I was no longer working with him, and he had, I don't know, probably 30-year history of PICA, and we did everything we could to treat it, and the laws in the state that we were working in basically said you can't restrict him from doing anything because he's an adult and he has the right to basically do whatever he wants. And so he would steal items from the center where we worked, put them in his pocket, and he knew that he had to do that to hide them. And then when no one was looking, he'd go to the bathroom and then he'd eat them in the bathroom. And we weren't allowed to search his clothing because that would be considered like an illegal search, right? Even if we knew he had something in his pocket, it was not within our rights to put our hands in his pocket, which is good that folks are looking out for people's rights, right? Like therapists or caregivers shouldn't be going around taking people's stuff, you know? But in this case, it was not so great because he would steal stuff, put it in his clothing, and then take it home or take it to the bathroom and eat it. And he ate things like, and I saw the x-rays, so I know this is real, not a myth. He ate batteries, he ate car keys, he ate scissors, a pair of scissors once. He ate a necklace, he ate multiple pens, coins, and he had many surgeries, of course, to remove these items because many of the items that he ate he couldn't pass, so they had to do surgeries to remove him, and eventually he died from complications of one of the surgeries.
Wow.
I mean, I think he was in his 60s at that point.
Wow.
But yeah, just tragic. And really, what it comes down to is not effective treatment.
And And also, I think where people get confused is that, and it's not just with PICA, there are a lot of different behaviors that come with autism that people outside the field of autism think that it's just a choice, that he's just making the choice to eat these items.
Right.
And not really understanding the compulsion behind it. And so, just to be clear, it isn't a choice.
Yeah, that's a really ridiculous thing to say about severe challenging behavior, especially in people with autism and OCD and developmental disabilities. You can't call it a choice. You can't meaningfully call it a choice. Who would choose to do something that kills them? Who would choose to bang their head against the wall to the point where they fracture their skull? Who would choose to gouge out their own eyes or chew off their own fingers? I mean, it's just crazy.
But this is where it gets dicey for me, is that if you say to people, well, it's not a choice, then people go, oh, then there's nothing that can be done. We get one extreme or the other. People who are like, well, he should just stop it. He should just get that together. Or the people say, oh, it's not a choice, so then there's no intervention. Oh, how sad. We stopped doing everything.
And both of those perspectives are completely false when it comes to PICA displayed by folks on the spectrum. I mean, it's not a choice, and yes, there are things that can be
Okay, so even when it is that compulsive thing that they can't control, we can do things to circumvent this behavior.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so do we need to figure out, first of all, because we always talk about the function of the behavior, do we need to make sure that it's a PICA behavior and that it is, as we were saying before, automatically reinforcing?
Yes, right, exactly. So as far as I know, all the published research that I'm aware of, PICA has been automatically reinforced, which means the individual does it not because of some consequence that they get from someone else. It's not to get attention, it's not to get what they want, it's not to get out of doing work or escape from something they don't like. It's just because the behavior produces its own satisfaction in some way. And your viewers might be asking, how can eating a rock or car keys produce its own satisfaction? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't get it either. But that is the case. I mean, that is a validated fact that occurs for some people.
Well, and I think we can all relate to the fact that all of us have at some point done something that we knew was not ultimately the best thing for us to do.
Absolutely.
Every time that ice cream was ever on a spoon and headed towards my face, I knew that it was not the thing to do.
Yeah, that's actually, you know what, that's actually a really good analogy, because for people who don't understand something like self-injurious behavior or PICA, just go and look at the problems with obesity and diabetes and things like that in our culture, and we're making choices all the time that are killing us. So maybe it's not so crazy.
Anybody who's ever smoked a cigarette, I mean, how could you ever say that like this is a really good idea? I mean, you know,
too much alcohol, you name it. Yeah.
So there we have it. But it can get to a point where you know, it's detrimental. But there is help and there is hope. If somebody's got somebody in their life that is displaying PICA behaviors, and I know before on the show you've talked about the fact that it can be progressive. That if somebody is starting out and just eating a little bit of paper, it's not the kind of thing that we go, well, it's just paper, it's not a bad thing, I'm not going to worry about it, right?
Probably better to get rid of that behavior as quickly as possible.
Okay, and what steps should they take?
Well, the good news is PICA is just like any other challenging behavior displayed by folks on the spectrum, and that is you do a functional assessment, figure out why the person's doing it, and then you give them an alternative behavior that gives them that same satisfaction or that same reinforcement, and you try to block the challenging behavior from occurring, or at least from getting reinforcement. So with PICA, oftentimes one of the main treatment components that you need to do is literally just physically blocking the behavior. So you do teach some other behavior and reinforce the heck out of it. So they've got something else to do that gives them satisfaction, gives them positive reinforcement, or gives them release from stress or anxiety, whatever it is. So it can be a lot of different things: squeezing a stress ball, chewing on a chew toy, you know, just even playing with toys, reading a book, whatever. You give them something else to keep them busy. And at the same time, oftentimes it does require someone to literally watch the person the entire time that they're around any inedible objects that they might try to eat, and physically block them from doing it. So if they grab an item and they're about to eat it, take the item away from them. And that's a very labor-intensive treatment. But, you know, a lot of folks do have one-to-one staffing anyways, especially if they have a severe problem behavior like PICA. And so that maybe is what that staff member is going to do a lot, is watch their hands and block them from putting stuff in their mouth.
So if you already have ABA, you would want to go directly to your supervisor and say, we're having an issue with PICA, and make a plan for how you were going to. If you don't already have ABA, then you would reach out to a BCBA and get a BCBA working with you on the PICA. Okay.
And again, if your child's displaying PICA at school, it's definitely the school district's responsibility to provide a BCBA, to do an FBA, and come up with a behavior intervention plan for that PICA as it occurs in the school.
Absolutely, and I would think that would become an emergency IEP, something that you don't wait on, because every day that your child is at school that the person doesn't know how to intervene, your child's at risk.
And one particularly challenging form of PICA is eating cigarette butts, which thankfully so few people smoke anymore that you don't see a lot of cigarette butts on the ground these days anyways. But there are documented cases of people with developmental disabilities who start eating cigarette butts, and they actually then become addicted to the nicotine in the cigarette butts. So it's automatically reinforced, but even worse, it's automatically reinforced where the reinforcer is nicotine because of nicotine addiction. That is an extremely hard behavior to treat. And of course, it's toxic. There's all kinds of toxic chemicals in cigarette butts, so it's pretty serious. So if you ever see your kid going for a cigarette butt, that's serious business. You
really
need to block
important
that
to take care of that.
Get on it,
Wow. Okay. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Dr. Tarbox to talk with us a little bit about a recent validation study about the skills program that we were talking about earlier. So stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity of
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and we understand that there is a skills validation study that I want to hear.
Sure, right. So this is the largest scale study we've ever conducted, probably the most pain in the neck study we've ever done. Angela Persicki is the first author. She really deserves all the credit. She was running the study. And what we did was we got the assessment portion of the skills system, which is, I don't know, 1,500 or so questions asking what can your child do and what can your child not do, which then directs you towards lessons in the skills program, right? So that you know what to teach your child, right? Or so that your BCBA knows what to include in your child's intervention program. So an important piece of designing any kind of assessment is what's called validation. Validation is, or the concept of validity, refers to the concept of whether or not the assessment actually accurately measures what it's supposed to measure, okay? So the skills assessment is supposed to measure whether or not your child can do a bunch of different skills, right? Basically everything under the sun that a human child learns up to about age 8 or so, right? Okay, so it consists of a bunch of questions, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your show a lot, a bunch of questions that parents or anyone else who's really familiar with the child, they answer yes or no. Can your child ask for preferred food when the food is not visibly present? Yes or no. Can your child tie their shoes in context when it's time to go out and play? Yes or no, and so on. Okay, so you go and you fill out all of these questions, and that's a very useful tool clinically, right? But the question remains, if you've never done any research on that, how accurate are parents when they answer those questions, right? And the truth is, maybe not so much, right? We're not really sure. Until
you shouldn't assume.
You shouldn't assume it, right? Until you do research on it. So all major standardized psychological assessments, things like IQ tests, the Vineland, language assessments, all of those have gone through psychometric research where they validate the assessment, where they give a bunch of children the assessment, and then they measure those skills in another way that's already valid, and then they compare those two ways of assessing the skills. If they match up, then we know this newly developed one is valid. Okay. It's measuring whatever it's supposed to measure with reasonable accuracy.
Okay.
So that's what we did with the skills assessment. We took a bunch of kids, I'm forgetting how many now, I think 39 or so kids of all different ages. We gave their parents the skills assessment. They answered all the yes or no questions, and then we went out and actually directly probed with the kids, can they actually do these skills or not, okay? In the real environment with the real, the real child, the real skills, actually testing it, okay? That equaled out to about, I believe it was 39,000 and change individual trials of data collection.
Wow.
So everything you can think of that a human child up to the age of 8 or so might need to do, we went out and tested these kids. Can they actually do it? It was a lot of work.
Yes.
We did it across 3 different sites. We ran the study in our Phoenix office. We ran the study here at the headquarters office, and our good friend and colleague Dr. Amanda Adams at Cal State Fresno had her students run it in her autism center as well. So 3 different sites, 3 different groups of experimenters running the study, and we all found basically the same results. And what we found was, yes, actually it is pretty valid. So parent report does actually predict pretty well on skills what the child can actually do.
Woohoo!
So, yeah, that was,
I mean, great for the assessment and great for the parents. I mean, that's a win-win for all of us.
Absolutely.
That I know, I certainly did the skills assessment, and I've had to do the Vineland and those kinds of things, and it's always in the back of your head. Does my mood affect this? What if I don't remember?
Yeah, have I even seen that behavior?
What if I'm a little flip today and go, I don't care?
What if I'm in a bad mood? What if I'm feeling depressed about everything my kid can't do?
Yes.
Or what if I'm feeling overly optimistic about the potential? Right?
Yes.
I mean, all of those factors do influence how people report when they fill out assessments of their child's skills. And that's why this kind of research is important. Basically what this kind of research addresses is the question of how inaccurate is it, right? Because nothing is 100% accurate.
Sure.
It's how close to reality is it? And if it's pretty darn close, then that means it's going to be pretty useful clinically, right?
Yeah.
So now, when you fill it out, though, when you actually use it, we're still recommending that the BCBA, or the parent, if the parent is running the program, answers all of the questions. That gives you a list of ideas of what to teach. Now, you still want to probe 1 or 2 trials with the kid as a baseline, essentially, right?
Sure.
To see, can my child actually do this? If they can do it, great. You don't have to teach it.
Yes.
If they can't do it, then great. The assessment just pointed out something they can't do. That's a good place to start.
And one of the things that I also love about skills is that there is a way that you can go back if later on the child loses the skill, or you see that they really don't have it in the way that you thought that they did, that they really don't, like they can do it sometimes but not enough to include mastery. There are ways that you can go back and add it back into the child's program.
That's right, absolutely.
But yes, being able to, as I was saying before with skills, being able to know what's age appropriate and skill appropriate for your child to work on is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's just a great resource.
Empowering thing for parents. And I have to say too that after, because I did the skills assessment twice. I don't know if I'm the only person who did it twice, but I ended up having to do it twice. So when people say, oh my gosh, there's a lot of questions, it's kicking my keister, believe me, I know.
And I think
it's worth it.
I don't remember when you did it exactly those 2 times. You may have done an earlier version where you had to answer more questions.
I did the paper version first.
The paper, okay, because now, or the last few years, the way it's worked is, well, yeah, if you, depending on how you answer the questions, you don't have to answer future questions.
Yes.
If those questions depend on these questions.
Yes.
All that's figured out.
There are a lot fewer questions that both, because I did the first, I don't know if that's the beta when it was on paper.
Yeah.
Where it came in a box.
Yeah.
And I cried. And then I did it online when it was all the questions before it got, more concise.
Yeah.
So yes, I've answered those questions. But can I tell you, it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it, because I then, when it was all there, I was able to look at a graph and see I'm a very visual person, and I got to see exactly where he was in different skills in a visual way that just empowering. It's the word I keep coming back to. I saw, okay, this is where my child is behind. I really hadn't been able to see exactly. I wanted a snapshot. Right. I think parents ask for that a lot. I want a snapshot of where my child is, and skills does that for you like that once you answer the questions. And it grows with the child.
That's right.
So you only have to do it the once, but it grows. I mean, I did it when he was, 7 years old, and he's about to be 11, and I get to continue growing on what's there. It's remarkable, and I said thank you to Dr. Najdowski, and now I'm saying thank you to you too.
Well, thanks for the praise.
It's really remarkable. Great for parents, great for teachers, and great for practitioners. Truly wonderful. Now we're going to let you go before the end of the show, so you're not stuck here as I go through the ending notes. But if we don't, we're not sure if we're going to get to see you next week. But if we don't get to see you next week, have a really happy holidays. Heaven knows you have earned it. I hope you get a little bit of a break. I'm getting a little bit of a break. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the work that you do, and how that trickles down to all of us. And I'm sure that there are people in the far reaches of the earth that don't know how your work has affected what they do, but it has. So thank you. I'm going to get emotional. But anyway, thank you so much. Happy holidays. We're going to take a break, and I'll be back to close out the show and the week. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackman. Welcome back to What's Left. We're enjoying some wine. We're going to make some fake bourbon chicken tonight, but we're not using bourbon. It's not gluten-free. So what we're doing, and Kristen, you're doing a great job at pounding and getting out all of your energy on that chicken, so go take it out.
I know. You know, how many of us moms are at a park or we're at a grocery store and somebody walks up to you and, you know, your child's having a meltdown and, you know, having not one of those fun days. This is a great thing to come home to. You would come home and really pound that chicken and you would feel so much better. Basically, it kills two birds with one stone.
You're making a great meal for your family.
Yes, and you're feeling great.
You're feeling better about that jerk who said, why can't you get your kid under control?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all your pounded, aggressive chicken and start to saute it in the skillet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of my grapeseed oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. We love the way we're going to just try to brown this up and cook it a little bit. Just a little bit of salt and pepper on top. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this. Great, Kristen. Great job. I think we're almost all brown here, so I'm going to get your help over at the cutting board, if you don't mind.
The cutting station.
The cutting station. We're going to cut this in about 1/3 slices. You go chop it up. Okay. I'm going to start on the sauce.
Okay.
We're going to take the orange juice water and add that in. And I'm going to measure out the fake soy sauce, 1/3 cup. Add that in. Take in your ketchup and your brown sugar and go ahead and put that in. So in here is the red pepper flakes and ginger. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. So in the red pepper flakes, if you've got a kid that's really sensitive and doesn't like to bring a lot of heat to the kitchen, you can definitely omit that. That's not a problem. And then my favorite, as much garlic as tolerated. And the last thing that we're going to do, and as we get this heated up on the skillet, is we're going to pull this in, thicken to a sauce, and add in the arrowroot to thicken it. So we're going to go back to the frying pan. Woohoo! And put in our sauce, and we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's when I'm going to add the arrowroot. What arrowroot does for everything, like when we're baking with gluten-free flours, this adds kind of the oomph to hold it together. Arrowroot is also a great sauce thickener. So let's go in and add the chicken. Thank you again for helping get this all together. I made extra sauce because I'm a saucy girl. So we made a really nice meal here tonight. We're talking just the right flavors, right texture. So I'm going to serve you up to what we're going to have for dinner, if that sounds good to you. Yes! So
I always love coming
over. So what we made over here is just really some, what I call my dirty rice. And it's just some of the really nice different spices. I use a little red pepper flakes in that as well. Beaumont, parsley, and just salt and pepper. It's really simple. And some of my favorite, which is zucchini sauteed. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve you up, and you can get to be my guinea pig once again.
I will always be a good guinea pig anytime you cook.
Bon appetit, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us at Autism Live. Kristen, I had fun with you today.
I always have fun. Thank you.
It is. It's great. And we had fun with you, too. And if you have questions or want to see us cook some more different dinners, just email us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or go to Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. Or Taka Now. Taka's got tons of recipes, over 2,000 recipes ready for you to come and explore and have some fun. And thanks to Holly for this great bourbon-free bourbon chicken. And we'll see you next time on What's Love? Bye, guys.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here at the end of the day, at the end of the week. So much to talk about, but somebody had written in and then they clarified that for our mom that was deciding about the IEP and asking for the FBA, somebody wrote in and said, and I didn't understand what their sentence was, but they were saying their suggestion would be to go ahead and have the IEP next week because it's right before the vacation, then it will give the team time to think about, so you're not going to sign the IEP, but you'll go in and have the initial meeting, and their suggestion is it'll give them time to think and hopefully come up with some great answers, and that they would like to know what ends up happening, because we can all learn from these kinds of things. And I think there is something to be said for that, to have that initial meeting, but if you put the request in for the FBA today, then they'll know that they're not going to get a done IEP next week, and that's a good thing for them to know too. Can't hurt for them to know what's happening, because if things are working right, everybody should be happy and excited to make progress, right? That should be the way these things work. In any case, I got to tell you some news about next week. So next week we're here for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Very exciting week. Dr. Doreen Grampachet will be here on Wednesday to do the second half of the Anxiety Show. On Monday, we'll be here with Alex Plank and Matt Asner. And Matt Asner is going to be bringing Nava Paskowitz with him on Tuesday. She is a remarkable woman who I just got to meet recently, and she works in a lot of aquatic situations with kids on the spectrum. That she is part of Surfers Healing. So we're so thrilled to talk with her. She is the mom of at least one child who's on the autism spectrum, and so we'll be thrilled to have the two of them here together. And so then on Wednesday, it will be Dr. Doreen Grampachet. On Thursday, we've got Christina Adams, who is the author of A Real Boy. And then on Friday, we will have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and we're going to have Hans Gillinger back, and he's going to be here giving us insider tips on how to get the most out of our IEP strategies. Remember, he is the lawyer that was with us a couple of weeks ago who used to represent school districts. Now he represents families, so he can get into the mindset of the administrators at the school district to let us know IEP techniques to get what's truly effective for our kids out of that FAPE, that free appropriate public education. So quite the lineup next week. It's very, very exciting. Also, I meant to say too, on Thursday, we have some people from CLE. This is an organization that helps get kids college ready that are on the autism spectrum. So it's shaken down to be a really good week. And we will also be giving away everything that's left. So the cupboard will be bare at the end of Friday, a week from today. There will be nothing left on my shelves. All the rest of the toys are going. So you won't want to miss that. Tell everybody you know it's the giveaway extravaganza on steroids next week. So thrilled for that. And thank you. We love it when you write back and tell us when you've won something. Somebody wrote today and that won the leapfrog pad. Absolutely love that. Very excited. We're out of time. We'll be back on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.